Are we? Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Well, as it's 7 o'clock, we'll say good evening, everybody, and thank you for being here.
Good evening.
And obviously, as usual, we have the residents welcome to speak to us. Have we got any residents here tonight that are asking to speak, Paul?
No, we don't.
No, we don't. Okay. So we shall move on to item 1 then. Any apologies for absence?
We've got apologies from Councillor Bloomfield and also from Buckinghamshire councillors Warren White and Tim Mills.
Okay, thank you. Any declarations of interest? So, no, not from anybody that we know of. Oh, Paddy's got this. We've got your hand up, Paddy. You're muted. What's he doing?
Where is he?
Downstairs.
Bottom row on the screen. Sorry.
Not on mine, he's not.
Yeah, he's 4th row down.
Yeah, I don't think he can unmute himself. Paul, can you unmute?
No, I can ask him to unmute, but I can't actually unmute.
Oh. Oh, he's coming to you, I think, Geraldine.
Coming to ask now. Can you not?
Carry on without me, Geraldine. I'll try and sort it out.
What?
I don't speak for ages anyway.
What's the problem?
I can't get a gallery view. I can only see the current speaker.
Okay, can you press on the little square in the middle at the top?
No.
Okay. Well, you're muted at the moment, so. Okay, he doesn't want to speak, Paul. He was trying to get a gallery view and he can't get it going. Right, we shall bypass Paddy at the moment and move on to item 3. So it is the minutes of the full council meeting held on the 5th of October 2020. Anybody got it? I think John's hand was up this week.
I think I'm not going to be the only person. I think they've got the wrong date on the top, isn't it? Yeah, Nina's nodding. Yeah, okay. Yeah. That's all I can see in terms of needing correct things.
And Councillor Cole?
Thank you, Chairman. 2 corrections on page 4. To receive questions, reports from Buckinghamshire County councillors. Under Councillor Clare, the 3rd line should read, Councillor Clare informed members, not Councillor Cole.
Oh.
Uh-huh.
And
missed that.
On page 7, under Chair's announcements, it should be Councillor Mordew who announced that Buckingham's twin town had a new mayor, not myself.
Okay, thank you. Have we?
That's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Did anyone else have a hand up there that I didn't see? No.
Nope.
Okay. We shall move on to item 4, the interim minutes for the meeting held on the 2nd of November. Any queries on that one? Robin's got his hand up. Yes, Robin?
Just of the action, I think it was your motion, Madam Mayor, that were the actions of the letters and that sent in records to that motion after interim, which was to ask the questions. There was an amendment and we agreed it unanimously. Were the actions followed up, which is really a question for the town clerk?
Yeah, but this is agreeing the minutes as an accurate record, Robin. It's not going through the actions.
Yeah.
No, okay. Just that, you know, okay. So we'll send them post day. Fine.
Anyone else? No. Okay. So we shall move on to item 5, the planning committee.
Okay, I present the minutes of Monday 12th of October. If members agree they're correct.
Thank you, Lisa. Any questions on those? I can see. Okay, we'll move on to item 6 then, the Town Centre and Events Committee, the minutes for...
You're muted, Robin.
You're muted.
Thank you very much, Madam Mayor. I present the minutes of the Town Centre Events Committee there's one recommendation within it to full council, which is to move monies to the River Rinse, which is because, as you all well know, we had a storm on the second River Rinse, and we won't budget for free next year, but if we put the money in earmarked reserves, it does give us the option to post budget if the weather's fine and we're able to get one in early with agreement with SOSA Aqua. We can retain that money in earmarked reserves and make that decision to do it. If we can't do it, the money's still in earmarked reserves and it's still available for the council for the precept.
Agreed.
Okay.
Yeah, great.
Everybody agree on that?
Yeah.
Councillor Harvey's got his hand up. No, that was a thumbs up, was it?
Thumb up.
Oh, the thumbs up. I agree.
Thank you. So that's all agreed. Thank you. Okay, item 7, the Environment Committee.
To receive the minutes of the Environment Committee meeting held on the 26th of October, there are no recommendations and they'll be formally agreed by the next Environment meeting.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And item 8, the minutes of the Resources Committee.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just to present the draft minutes of the Resources Committee meeting held on the 9th of November.
Thank you very much. Any? No, nobody wants to speak. And item 9, the minutes of the Economic Development Working Group.
Similarly, Madam Mayor, to present the draft minutes of the EDWG held on the 11th of November.
Thank you. Okay, item 10, terms of reference, to review and agree the terms of reference as reviewed at Town Centre and Events Committee. Any questions on that? It's in Appendix A.
I was just wondering what the changes were.
Anyone
Whether
else?
they're significant or not.
Well, there's no significant changes. There was discussions about between two separate meetings about them being different to what members felt they were. The changes were brought to the previous council and committee meeting to have them changed to that. The committee then, with the minute clerk, discussed that, and the minute clerk presented these minutes, these terms of reference in line with what the committee wanted, which is where we'd agreed them twice and whatever, but this is what the committee wanted. This is the last terms of reference. So it's what the committee has agreed. So it's up to you whether you want to change them or agree them.
Agree them.
Agree.
Agreed.
Yeah, agreed.
Thank you, everybody.
Yeah.
Right, we should move on to item 11, which is a motion from Councillor Cole.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm your elected representative on the Buckinghamshire Council, Buckingham and Villages Community Board. I have not been impressed at 2 meetings where we've been downgraded from committee members to members of the public. Not only that, but we've had our terms councillors removed from us, and we're now just plain Mr., Mrs. or Miss. I did raise this to the chairman, who's Charlie Clare. He said he'd be looking at it and possibly just show that we are councillors by putting what council we're representing afterwards. I'm still against it. Hence my motion that this council requests that all councillors elected to represent their town and parish councillors be afforded their civic title of councillor in attendance lists and minutes of the Buckingham Villages Community Board, and that they're reinstated as committee members and not public at those meetings. Not to do so is undemocratic and disrespectful to the town and parish councils for which this board is convened. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Cole. I think Lisa had a hand up there.
Yeah, I'd like to second this, Madam Mayor, if that's okay. I actually raised this with Charlie Clare at our second meeting of the community board. I was there to give an update on the Buckingham Activities Group, and I was following up on an email that Councillor Harvey had sent because he had picked up on it from the first set of draft minutes. So I asked the chair why this was, that we didn't have our councillor in front, and he used an example that he didn't want other people to feel like they weren't valued, like Dean from the university, and it's kind of snowballed from there really, because I don't think anybody should feel undervalued by not having their councillor or Mr. or Mrs. in front, but I just think that we're elected members, and I think it's just, if you're somebody who's listening in and you don't know who's who, it can look a bit dubious if there's money being allocated to various people, various organisations, and you don't know who actually is involved in those organisations. So it's not very clear.
Thank you. Yeah. Councillor Harvey?
Yeah, I mean, I would say, obviously, I support this wholeheartedly. A couple of things occur to me is if you don't declare that you're a councillor, then you're at risk of not declaring your interest. And therefore, it's only right and proper, according to the Code of Conduct, that all councillors should be declared as councillors in both the minutes and in the agendas. And also, I noted that in the minutes of the last meeting, the police officer was referred to as a sergeant. So how come the police get to keep their titles and councillors don't? So for it to be equitable, I do think that people should have their full council, their councillor sort of title, be it, I don't know, sergeant of police or councillor Cole or whatever, and others can be there in whatever manner they wish to be. If they were a doctor, we'd expect to see that in their title. I don't see why titles should be taken away from some and not all. So I wholeheartedly support this motion.
I wholeheartedly agree.
Oh, sorry, one more thing. Sorry, Chair. One more thing is I think we should send a copy of this motion to Councillor Clare and also to the Leader of the Council, Councillor Martin Ted as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Councillor Mordew?
I don't like being referred to as councillor in spelling it out. I prefer to be known as Howard. However, at such a meeting, the point that is made that people should know who is able to vote. And I think the abbreviation of CWLR is sufficient. And that's why I think it should be there. Because the people who are members of the public don't know who can vote and who can't. And for that reason, I actually support it without going into it in any detail. But on this particular issue, I will abstain.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Stutchbury?
Yeah, it is strange, isn't it, that an historic council like Buckingham, which has got heritage, is going to be told that they can't be recognised by a new council, which is Buckinghamshire Council. If you apply the Lord Lieutenant's list of priorities, so it doesn't represent political power, it represents historical cases. Buckinghamshire Council will probably now go to the back of the list in the parade. That saying, Councillor Cole raises an important point. And all the points about being recognised of what your position is. Councillor Cole is there as a chosen representative of Buckingham Town Council, and he is there to represent the views of our council. We would like more to represent 15,000 people, but that was taken away from us. When we came to the vote on the money at the last meeting, it was proved evident to the committee that only the Shire councillors could vote on the money and the agreement of it. And it can get very confusing when the minutes are a statement of what took place, not a minutes in the way that I would expect minutes to be agreed. But that's the choice of the chairman that the minutes drafted that way. I'm not sure how all the boards go in Buckinghamshire, but I'm recognised as a councillor in my correspondence from the clerk into me as a Shire councillor. She doesn't write to me as Mr. Stutchbury. She writes to me as Councillor Stutchbury, and I would expect Councillor Cole or anybody else in that position as a councillor to be represented equally to myself, because I think that's correct. So I'm supporting the motion. I will not abstain. I will vote for it because there's nothing to abstain for.
Thank you, Robin. Councillor Smith?
I see this drop out of the given title as being an attempt to dilute, if you like, the voice of the town and parishes that sit on that particular meeting. At the LAF meetings, we were always referred to as councillors throughout. There's no reason why that couldn't continue. I fully support everything that's said and support the motion.
Okay, thank you. So we're all agreed on that. I think Councillor Try has got his hand up.
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. Yeah, there are a few waves going along this one. Yes, we are councillors, but I think if you present yourself as Councillor Martin Try, then that's how you should be addressed. If I say my name is Mart, then you can call me as Mart rather than Martin. So there are different ways that people would like to be addressed. Now that's at the meeting. What goes down on paper could be a direction to the position they hold, because once it's down on paper, you need to know that for other people reading it. And it can be quite intimidating if everybody or a lot of people have a title and there are a whole load of members of the public which do not. And they may feel intimidated not to speak because of people with a title in front of their name. So I think this is a difficult one to state in every case. And last but not least, this is fine debating it for our council, but I don't think we can impose the same rule on the respective town and parish councils which sit on the board. We can make the motion for ours, but we can't impose it on others.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Try. Councillor Smith?
Yeah, thank you. I'm sorry to come back again, Madam Mayor. At the actual meetings, but perhaps through you, I could ask Councillor Cole and Councillor O'Donoghue. At the actual meetings, do you have labels with names on? And if so, do those names have councillor prefixing them?
Do you mean on Zoom?
Yeah.
Yeah, I keep my same label on. Yeah, I think Mark does as well.
That's the same label you can see now.
Yeah.
So
of course, we haven't actually had a meeting yet where we've been there in person, so we wouldn't have a label on our clothing as such.
No, the LAF used to have table labels, but then we were meeting physically rather than by Zoom.
Yeah.
So I think what Councillor Tries just said reinforces my view that we should be known by the title that we hold, which gives reason for us being there. And frankly, that applies to all of the parish council attendees. There might be other people attending. I might go along to one of the meetings or sign into them, but I wouldn't be there as a councillor. I'd be there as a member of the public. That's where the difference would lie.
Okay, thank you for that. Councillor String-Clark?
Thank you, Mayor. I'm totally in favour of this motion, and I would like to remind Councillor Try that we're not saying this council demands that, we aren't trying to impose our will. We're just saying request, because that is what we would like to happen. We can't impose our will. No, but requests, I don't see any problem with that.
No, absolutely. Councillor Rolfe?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I see this as yet another example of the dilution of this council, along with things like not being able to deal with planning as we did traditionally. And I would strongly resist and push quite firmly for proper titles to be used in the appropriate places. And this is an appropriate place.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Great. We'll take a quick one from Robin and then we shall.
What you have to consider is that it appears to me, evidenced by talking to colleagues, is that every community board has its own style. And I don't believe that there's what I call a cut and paste style. As far as if you get to Wickham, they can't refer to you as councillor because they haven't got a councillor in Wickham. But all the other people present will be councillors, and they will be referred to as councillors because they will be shire councillors because they haven't got any town council in Wickham. Now, what goes on in Amersham and other places, but our council is an historic council. It's got age, it's got its view against it, and we represent, or as a body, the views as the community council, and we should be recognised. No more, no less. And we should ask the cabinet member the responsibility for the community boards, whether there is a set policy on this. I would imagine it could be that it's the desire and the whim of the chairman. If that is so, that can be changed. We're not demanding anything other than what you and I and others at this body were elected to do. And presently, we're in an unusual situation where the town councillors are actually elected. Sitting as a shire councillor on a new authority, they're not elected. It's a strange one, that one, isn't it? We're just carried over from a previous authority. So the unelected body is telling the elected body not to be recognised. That's a curious one, isn't it? But so I think that's a nicety in itself, isn't it? And I support the motion heartily, and I will not be abstaining.
Okay, so are we ready? I think we're ready to take a vote on that. All those in favour of this motion?
Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14.
Any against? Any abstain?
Nobody.
Nobody, sorry, Paul.
None against. And
abstentions?
Howard, are you abstaining? Oh, yeah, 2 abstentions.
2 abstentions. Okay, that's all carried. Thank you. Now, item 12, we have a motion from Councillor O'Donoghue.
Point of order, Chair.
Sorry.
Point of order.
Yeah.
As you know, because I've given you a trailer on this, I don't think we should be discussing this motion, even though I have huge sympathies with the sentiment. I would contend that this motion is not allowable as it seeks to reverse the decision of the Resources Committee made less than 6 months ago, and without the requisite 6 written councillor supporters for the motion to be tabled. Obviously, Councillor O'Donoghue has helpfully pointed us towards the full minute, which is 176/20. And the minute was explained that the town clerk explained that the proposed new code had been developed in consultation with the sector and once agreed would be offered as a template for councils to adopt in whole or with local amendments. Councillor Smith said that it was a useful document on which to base a future code of conduct on, and I proposed and seconded by Councillor Smith and unanimously agreed to arrange a workshop to develop the code of conduct for Buckingham Town Council once the final motion, the model had been provided by NAUC. And it was agreed for the town clerk to respond to the consultation on behalf of the town council in support of the proposed model. Now, this was discussed and agreed by the Resources Committee on the 29th of June 2020 under its terms of reference and delegated powers. I would contend that Lisa's motion is designed to overturn that motion and therefore should be subject to Standing Order 7A. A resolution shall not be reversed within 6 months except either by a special motion, which requires a written notice by at least 6 councillors to be given to the proper officer in accordance with the Standing Order 9 below, or by a motion moved in pursuance of the recommendation of a committee or subcommittee. Now, I accept that we can still go ahead with the workshop when the final version of the National Code of Conduct is announced. However, I would contend that during the intervening time, which could be several months, we would have a code of conduct that does not reflect the June 29th motion that was passed and indeed reverses, therefore, its intent. Now, of course, some might say that this new motion is merely an amendment to that motion and not, therefore, a reversal, as the Standing Order states. However, when we recently amended the decision to establish a working party to investigate diversity and inclusion in the town, in order to reduce the number of councillors on the working group to a more workable number, that motion was required to be supported by 6 signatories. Given how controversial those 6 names then became in the ensuing debate, I think it would be wholly inconsistent now to expect the same approach to be adopted with regards to this current motion on the Code of Conduct. So therefore, I submit, Chair, that this motion is not properly submitted to the agenda for this evening on the basis of the Standing Order.
Thank you for that. We have advice from the town clerk.
Okay, so my view on that would be that the motion at Resources was to hold a workshop and then to respond to the consultation once it was agreed. There's nothing in Councillor O'Donoghue's motion that reverses that, so there's nothing in the motion to not hold the workshop. There's nothing in the motion to do anything about not adopting the final version of the code or discussing adopting the final version of the code once it's agreed. So nothing's being reversed or changed about the motion. Whereas the example that Councillor Harvey gave was where a decision was made to effectively allow all councillors to be part of the workshop, and then that decision was changed to reduce the number. So the decision, the second motion relating to the membership of that particular working group, did affect or change the original motion. There's nothing that I can see what Councillor Donoghu said that changes the original motion, and certainly doesn't reverse it or reverse the spirit of it. That's my view. It's for councillors to take a different decision.
Okay, so we'll go back to Councillor O'Donoghue.
Thank you. It's a shame that Councillor Harvey didn't give me an opportunity to speak first, because really his point of order was an argument against the motion. So I do have some words written down just to say in reply to his email, almost, if you like. So rather than reading out the whole motion, because it is rather long, just to say the motion was worked on with Paul, our town clerk. It's definitely not to reverse any decisions previously made. And I'm sorry if anybody came to that conclusion, especially after reading. I would like to submit that the following sections are added to the Town Council's Code of Conduct. The sections I'd like adding are taken from the National Code of Conduct that we agreed to support when ratified. They're not my words, but words put together, I'd imagine, by professionals in this field. I have not altered them in any way, shape or form. I don't see how adding in 2 sections undermines the council's reputation, as Councillor Harvey suggests. I see it the other way around. In fact, I was surprised we didn't have anything about bullying, harassing or bringing a town council into disrepute already. Plus, the whole motion from start to finish was drawn up with Paul, whose advice I respect and value, and I trust him to know what's best for the council.
Thank you, Lisa.
Thank you.
Anybody got a hand up on that? Councillor Strain-Clark?
Yeah, just briefly, I was just going to actually defend Councillor Harvey putting the point of order first, because if you bring your point of order, that has to be done before anybody speaks to the motion. So that's fine, but I'm quite happy with the motion. If you need a seconder, or if you've got one already,
No.
I'm happy to second it.
Thank you. I don't have a seconder, so thank you.
Councillor Mahi.
I was just going to second it.
Okay, thank you. Okay, Councillor Harvey.
Well, on the basis that we've now moved on to the substantive debate, and Councillor Strain-Clark is absolutely right. That's why I got in first with the point of order, because we always raise that first at the beginning. And I was not arguing against the motion. I was arguing against the principle that the motion should even be discussed. But let's talk about the motion now. I would propose that we actually adopt the whole draft Code of Conduct in its entirety, because then it makes sense. I would argue that by bolting these 2 paragraphs in isolation onto our existing Code of Conduct, which, by the way, does mention bullying, it's under membership obligations under item 2 and so on. But I think by having it therefore being mentioned twice, and then there'd be some confusion about exactly in what context the Code of Conduct applies. As I say, in the note that I sent round, I've always taken it to mean really any time that we're out and about and doing things in a public way, then we are subject indeed to the Code of Conduct, even where we're not actually, as it were, properly acting as a town councillor and so on. But I do think that by bolting those 2 paragraphs on without context or other amendment to the Code of Conduct, it's not going to make it very sense, and it could indeed undermine our Code of Conduct, because it would then be inconsistent and a bit of a sort of camel, as it were, designed by a committee and so on. So I'm proposing an amendment whereby we accept the whole draft LGA Code of Conduct as it's currently out to consultation. I've read through it. It seems quite eminently reasonable too. As Lisa said, it includes both paragraphs already pulled out by Lisa, but adds in substantially more stuff as well. So let's adopt that now, and then we can amend it when the final consultation yields the final version. But I think in the current version, it's completely doable. And I would commend that as a proposal that we adopt that one instead, rather than just taking the 2 paragraphs that Councillor O'Donoghue has suggested.
Okay.
So that's my proposal for an amendment. And obviously, if somebody wants to second that, that would be helpful. Thank you.
Point of order. Doesn't this fall foul of what you're arguing about 5 minutes ago? You're trying to change a decision that was already made. Point of order. Can you answer that, please, Paul?
Oh, okay. Well, no, if you follow the principle I said before, then again, there's nothing in what John's proposed. So John's proposing to change the motion to put the whole code of conduct in. But again, John presumably isn't proposing not to hold the workshop once the final version comes out, because the final version may differ to this draft version. So council may want to have a further and longer discussion about the final version once it comes out. So I don't think Councillor Harvey is now recommending in his amendment to change the decision of resources any more than he already thinks it was done. So if council is prepared to consider Councillor O'Donoghue's motion, I don't see why council shouldn't consider Councillor Harvey's amendment.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. Councillor O'Donoghue.
Thank you. Can I just ask you to Paul what you think about adopting the whole code of conduct now, because it was through discussion that somebody's phone's ringing. That we only adopt these 2 for now. So what's your professional opinion on what John's suggesting?
Well, so as with the original amendment, it certainly councillors can agree to do that. There's no reason not to. Obviously, you'd be adopting something which hasn't been formally signed off as a model. So there might be something that brains better than ours have identified that's not ideal in it. But there's nothing I can see in it which is seriously flawed. My expectation would be if it changes in the final version, it would be tweaked. And presumably then council would agree with the tweaked version once that came out. My only pause would be, clearly councillors may very well not have read the whole document before making this decision. So councillors have seen the agenda with the bits that Councillor O'Donoghue's listed on, but councillors may, even though it did go to resources back in June, councillors might not remember exactly what they read for the resources committee back in June. So councillors might be more comfortable only voting through something which they've seen and considered before this evening's meeting.
Thank you. Thanks, Madam Mayor.
Okay, Councillor Hirons.
Yes, I just agree with what the town clerk's just said. I'm not up to date with the thing that's being proposed by Councillor Harvey, and so there is no way that I would wish to vote on it either way at the moment. It ought to be put in to the agenda in a proper way so we can look at it and then discuss it. And as far as I can see, it isn't, and therefore I don't want it. I'm quite happy with Councillor O'Donoghue's one, because that's been properly proposed in the agenda. This one hasn't, and I don't want to talk about it until we've had a chance to do that and discuss it between all of us.
Okay, Councillor Ralph.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I would gently disagree with the town clerk that putting these 2 amendments on doesn't materially change the document. Any omission, any additions materially changes it. And on that basis, I would be happy to second Councillor Harvey's suggestion, with the idea that we should fix the term interim to the title until such times as the workshop has taken place and the council has voted on it, has voted on it in the fullness of time.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak? Councillor Try.
Thank you. This may have been written by higher powers, higher than me, but there is a few words in there that I don't like, and I don't see how they're going to make this work. And that is bullying is a behaviour which may be a one-off incident. I mean, if I said to somebody, and it says here in social events or in a workplace, if I say, oh, come on, put your hand a bit deeper in your pocket, well, there you go. That could have been a bullying incident. It's a one-off. It wasn't bullying, but I don't see how they can, the person may feel that that is me bullying them to give them more money. It's nothing to do with the motions here, whether we include it or not. It's just the wording of that little bit, which I will be unhappy with in the draft or full one. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor O'Donoghue.
Thank you. What Councillor Tribe just read out isn't correct. It says the bullying might be a regular pattern of behaviour or a one-off incident.
Okay, thank you for that, Councillor. Sorry, Robin's hand up. Yeah.
I've sat here listening to it, and it appears that everybody's really in agreement, in the sense that everyone wants to change standing orders in line with the new government proposals. Now, the advantage of taking it all now as an interim agreement, as Councillor Ralph has suggested, that we pick up lots of other things in the mean, but we do need to review it in line with and then to be adopted, amended. So I think it does make sense if we move forward, because then everyone's in agreement that we both take the very important sections that Councillor Donoghue's brought forward, which has raised the question which needs to be answered. So if we were to adapt it along the lines of what Councillor Anthony Ralph suggested, that would be, it would at least mean we end the party both with everything in line. We've answered the motion, and we've gone beyond that, and we've answered the substantive questions, because we wouldn't. There's been no recommendation on the paperwork. And yes, there has been a gap from resources to now, but resources made a recommendation from the chairman's committee to this committee, and nobody discussed it at that point, that we would be reviewing it in a workshop. And if we review it in a workshop, then that workshop can make any amendments necessary at that point, and it can be changed again. And that way we could all be on the same page. Everyone's dignity would be respected, and whatever we'd agreed would be substantive. So, and I think just agreeing part of it, I haven't got the whole document in front of me, but would be my only worry about agreeing something without the whole paperwork before me, where we have got Councillor Donoghue's sections of it, which she's done a good job of talking through the practicalities of it. But there may be other things that we want to change. So either we should agree those sections now, or agree it all now and agree to bring it back after we've had a workshop on it and change it again, because I don't want, it'd be wrong if we had a vote now where 50% of us want to adopt part of it and 50% of us don't. What signal does that send? Well, we should be wanting to be ahead of the game and adapting best practice, which we've got a chance to now, because Councillor Donoghue's put this motion before us. So I listened to it all, and I think Councillor Anthony Ralph summed it up quite well, I thought, taking out the other. And I'd be interested in what the town clerk's view on that, whether there is a legal reason not to do that. If I'm advised that isn't how it should be done, I'll take that advice. Otherwise, there is an advantage in having it all. We've already got it all in play anyway as a draft to be amended. I don't see what the problem is. I'd be interested to see what Paul says.
Okay, we'll ask Paul. I'm just wary of Paul adopting something that's still out in consultation. Surely we should wait until that's ended. Anyway, I'll pass you over to Paul.
Yeah, that's certainly a point that members may want to consider. In terms of the point around should we adopt it as an interim measure, I think using the word interim is somewhat moot, because on any given day we have a code of conduct that's in play. So if a complaint's against a member, for example, then the monitoring officer will contact me and say, what is the council's current code of conduct that I should judge this complaint against? So whether we call it interim or not is kind of irrelevant, because that's the current one. I don't think anybody's suggesting that we don't have a workshop and we don't consider the full version once it's gone through. So I don't think there's any controversy about that will definitely be happening. The only issue seems to me to be what we have between now and when that happens, which is either 2 bits Lisa's recommended, which at least members have seen, or it's the whole thing, or council tries raise an issue with half of it, so you might want to take that half out and just read the other half with the other option. if not all members are happy with what it says about bullying, then maybe that would be better.
Well, just to come back, now I've heard what you said, Town Clerk. So what you're actually saying is we don't complicate matters by adopting part of it, but we would complicate matters. It's all in draft. So you've told us it's in draft, but we do contradict it by adopting all of it. So you can't, both contradictions have got to be the same, haven't they? For conformity, would it not be better to agree in principle tonight, the amendments to the Constitution and to our standing orders to be adopted as soon as they become affirmative and gone through public consultation? Because otherwise you've just told us that we can adopt part of it, but not all of it, because the two things just don't make sense with me. I can't see how you can do both. But I'm quite happy to agree the things tonight. Don't get me wrong. I was just trying to save time by having it all done. But if that's going to be a problem, let's just get on and agree the two bits, move forward and bring the other stuff back.
Councillor Harvey?
I mean, I think I'm not sure the exact source that you used, Lisa, for the two texts, but certainly one comes from the LGA draft that I referenced in the document I sent around. I presume the other bit does as well. So in terms of not accepting, as you pointed out a second ago, Madam Mayor, about something that was in draft, well, currently the motion paragraphs that Lisa has included are both currently in draft because they're part of the draft consultation. So if we're rejecting things because they're in draft, then we shouldn't be accepting anything until it's been through a full consultation. I mean, it seems to me that surely when it comes to the code of conduct, we shouldn't be rushing into this. This governs our behaviour as we've agreed, both inside and outside the council chamber and so on. So therefore, this is not something to do in haste. So perhaps maybe we should use this as a moment to say, well, why don't we accelerate the workshop and have that sooner rather than later? Let's have a discussion based upon the full text of the consultation document rather than kick the can down the road as we did before back in June, and then bring back that amended code of conduct in its entirety, having all had then a good chance to look at it. And then when a new version emerges from the LGA/NALC, there are things within that we think we need to adopt, then we can do so at that point. But I do really counsel against rushing just to take two bits out that are currently in consultation and bolting them onto our existing code of conduct. So I would. I mean, my motion is still on the table that we actually take the full version, and perhaps we should have a vote on that. But if I lose that vote, then I will be proposing that we defer this until we've actually had some proper consultation on the whole document, rather than do it in pieces, which is the main essence of what I'm suggesting.
Okay, Councillor O'Donoghue.
Thank you. Councillor Harvey's argument is a weird one because on the one hand, he's saying not to add in these two sections that that the town clerk pulled out, that he's okayed as being it wouldn't affect adversely our own code of conduct. It'll enhance it. But Councillor Harvey wants us to agree a whole document that all of us haven't seen and read, rather than two sections that will only help our code of conduct, strengthen it. I don't understand the argument at all. We haven't seen all of us haven't seen the whole draft document yet. This motion isn't taking away a workshop. All I'm asking is that these are added in now in consultation with the town clerk. This is with advice from Paul. I haven't just gone and done this on my own. This has been in partnership with our town clerk, the person that we refer to and ask advice of. And if he had thought the whole document would have been valid, then I would have put that as a motion. But he didn't. It's these two that he feels would strengthen our code of conduct, which is why we've got this tonight. So I'd ask if we can just go to the vote, please, Madam Mayor.
Okay, thank you, Lisa. There's just Councillor Mordew has had his hand up for a long time, so we'll see him and then go to the vote.
It does ache a bit. As I understand it, you can only debate items which are on the agenda. There's nothing on the agenda about instituting a new code of conduct. You can debate the items on the agenda which refer to what Councillor Donoghue raises to amend what's been said, and that is what I would go for. I would not be happy about adopting something which is a new code of conduct which is not on the agenda.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Mordred. So shall we go to the vote? We need to vote on the amendment first.
But so far, nobody seconded the amendment.
Oh, right.
Yes, they have, Councillor.
Oh, Councillor.
Yeah,
Yes?
it was second.
Yeah, okay. So, right, all those in favour of the amendment?
Sorry, can we just hear the amendment again? Because we had debate since the amendment was first raised.
Okay, Councillor Harvey, can you read that out again for us, please?
Okay,
It should be the clerk that reads it out, surely.
All right, Paul.
Well, the
Neither.
minute taker, she'll have written it down. She should read it back verbatim what he said first time, because he might say something different this time than he said first time.
Okay, thank you. Who would like to read that out? Would you
Nina
like
needs to read it back.
Nina?
Nina's just reading to get it. Just give
Okay.
Nina the document
I sit around.
It's coming.
Unmute yourself.
She's muted. There you go.
Sorry. So Councillor Harvey proposed an amendment to adopt the whole NAUC Code of Conduct in its entirety. I've got these sections on. It goes into further explanation about how it would undermine the Code of Conduct, but essentially it's an amendment to adopt the entire NAUC Code of Conduct.
The entire new draft now. Code of Conduct.
Can I just ask a legal question before we vote on that from the town clerk? We've had lots of opinions around this, and
I've called for the vote, Madam Mayor. Can we please
no,
go to the
I need to know
with a
this
vote.
legal advice. I don't want to slow the vote down. I want to know the advice. What is the result of acting against the advice of the town clerk at the start of it with the amendment? If the amendment isn't on the agenda and voting on something that isn't on the agenda, we're voting blind. What is the legal consequences of that? Because if it was an expenditure or a decision of the council and we haven't got the paperwork, we wouldn't vote on that. Would it be normal procedures for a council not to be able to vote on something they hadn't had presented to the paperwork, which was Councillor Mordew's suggestion? And would we not be acting outside by doing that? Our own code of conduct and our own standing orders.
Okay, thank you, Paul.
My view on that, when Councillor Mordew might disagree with me, my view on that would be we've established the principle that it's possible to add two parts of the model code of conduct into the code. So to just add more, i.e. all of them into the code, I don't see that as then going beyond what's legally possible. However, I am advising members that they may want to pause before agreeing to do that if they haven't read the code in its fullness.
I'll just take Councillor Stutchby's point with the town clerk. The town clerk is there to give you advice. You don't have to take that advice, so you're not culpable in law if you don't take that advice. And any amendment is fine. But I note caution on if you were to adopt something which is not on the agenda.
Okay, thank you. Right, we shall go back to the vote on the amendment. All those in favour?
1, 2, 3.
And against?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12.
And any abstentions?
1.
1. Okay, thank you. So we'll now move on to the substantive motion. All those in favour of that? Do you want to? Yes.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14.
And against?
1.
Any abstentions?
1.
1. Okay, so that motion is carried. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor.
Okay. All right. Let's turn the page over. We'll move on now to item 13, to receive and question reports from, we haven't got any Buckinghamshire, we have. Yes, we have.
Robin.
Reports from Buckinghamshire councillors.
Is there anybody else present apart from Howard and myself?
No.
Oh, that's unfortunate. In which case, being as you don't recognise, we had a debate about recognising councillors earlier, and we all agreed that Buckingham Town councillors should be recognised. Could I just ask the mayor that she recognises us in another place as well, so we are consistent in that? I'm joking, Geraldine, when I say
I know. I'm getting all tongue twisted.
Just to report to you, I took 2 motions to Buckinghamshire Council at the last council meeting. One on the constitution in relation to town and parish councils, which was passed, amended, and there was going to be consultation with parishes after that. The second motion, which was agreed, amended, which was over the government's white paper. Both of these were subjects which the town council had discussed and come to a view on, and the motions are very much in support of the town council's view. That was passed and amended. I put a series of written questions to the council. I attended the last cabinet meeting on a technical question in relation to the white paper on how they were going to proceed with that. I've since attended Fire Authority. I've since attended the Fire Authority Audit Committee, and I've since attended Audit and Children's Services and Education. All of those I've asked a plethora of questions, and some of those committees I followed up with written questions afterwards because the answers I received were not satisfactory. I've attended the community board, which I was pleased to see my fellow town councillors present at, and we voted on some funding, and part of that funding was to do with the community. Part of that funding was to agree an element of funding for the Christmas parade window display and other elements. Apart from that, I will be carrying on with meetings this week. I've had a series of correspondence over elements to do with social issues, anything from child not getting their place in a grammar school to difference in opinion over contributions to the Buckinghamshire Council on elderly care for people in dementia, and discussions and assistance to residents in getting school places, and the usual conversations about advising people how to get on the housing register. I have a question to answer this week, which I'm not sure about foul smells in a council building, a social housing building, and I will be placing a motion at the next agenda, which I will circulate to you closer to the time for obvious reasons. I don't want to tell other Buckinghamshire councillors the content of that motion yet, because it hasn't gone through the full protocol of democratic services. And I have been to numerous COVID meetings and numerous meetings in regards to other working shops to do with the council. And as I said, we carry on this week. But apart from that, I haven't done much at all.
Sounds pretty busy to me. Thank you, Robin. Councillor Mordew? You're muted.
Sorry about that. We've started working on the budget, and there's a financial services meeting this week, and there's been quite a lot of work being done on the budget. But even more interesting is working on the subgroup of the Standards Committee and working with the Boundaries Commission to actually work out the number of councillors on the new council. It won't affect the next election, it will affect the one after that. At the moment, we've got something like 188 councillors, and the recommendation, which the Boundaries Commission normally works on, is about 85. So there's a big gap there. And it's not, and I think the number is going to come down to around about 120, 140 councillors, but we don't know yet. It's a question of putting it to the Boundaries Commission and then coming up with a figure which will then go out for consultation to all the parishes. At the moment, it's a little bit of toing and throwing. We've had Zoom meetings with the Boundary Commission It's only a small group doing it, to try and work out what would be a satisfactory number that could represent it, the residents. It's not about a business case. It's purely about representation of residents, which is going to be some interesting developments over the next few weeks and leading up to the next election. I've been involved in a number of other things which will come to fruition probably in the new year. Any questions?
Thank you for that. Councillor Stutchbury's got his hand up again.
Councillor Hart, Councillor Mordew, sorry. The premise of the boundary commissions, as I understand it, was we're still in the consultation stage. The boundary commission informed all councillors present at the last meeting that there would be no change to the current election numbers. They would be consulting on the election to do with 2024, and that they would at some point during the game be consulting parishes and other interested parties and political groups. If you're telling me that there's a quasi group of councillors discussing further than that, I will have to do a freedom of information request to ascertain what you are discussing. Because as far as I was advised, and I listened to the Boundary Commission, they advised me that gerrymandering would be watched very carefully. So if you're advising me there's conversations about numbers before the next election, that is contrary to what they advised us in a legal meeting with them in confidence. So if you're telling me that's different, please advise me so I can take that question up in another place. Because you alluded to that would be something interesting before the next election.
No,
they
no,
were told us that it would be after the election.
No, I didn't, Councillor Stutchbury. I said it would be after the next election.
You did.
I must have misheard.
There's discussions going on to try and come up with some sort of numbers, but nothing will be done before the next election. It'll be after that election, and it'll probably be in the next couple of years. It's a long-winded process. There's no question of anything being altered. No, there's no question of anything being altered before the next election. And as I said, when it does come to the point of having some sort of idea of numbers, it will go out for consultation to all councillors and to all parishes. And that's why it takes so long. There'll be a long consultation period, maybe a year or more. So it's certainly well over the next election in May.
And you would agree?
Just one other point. It's not a quasi committee. It's just a discussion. So we're not having meetings to usurp the opinions of councillors, but it's just to have some sort of idea of the amount of work that the councillors do. And you were asked to submit a survey, a response to a survey, asking how many hours councillors do, so they can get some measure of the amount of work councillors actually put in. And that's all taken into account in the findings in determining the number of councillors.
There wasn't enough pages. I did submit it.
Well, as long as you submitted it, that's fine. It will be taken into account.
Okay, thank you. Nobody else has got a hand up on there, so we shall move on to item 14, which is the action list. Has anybody got anything on there they want to bring up? Councillor Cole?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yes, on page 2, the public crossing at Morton Road, it's actually going to come up on our agenda on January 20, 2021, waiting an update from Buckinghamshire Council, but we might be overtaken by events by then. Last Thursday, I attended on behalf of this council the Strategic Sites Committee, where the Maids Morton Warnock Drive application for 170 houses was approved, despite 5 town and parish councils and 472 residents being in opposition. As a result of that, the Section 106 mitigation is going to be put in place. One of the arguments was that the developer had not in 21 months provided the details of that mitigation to Buckinghamshire Council. The bottom line, though, is that as of today, Sue Pilcher, who is Principal Planning Officer, has emailed Lady Rima Scott, Chairman of Foskett Parish Meeting. Rima has sent that email on to me, and it says, I would confirm as expressed in the meeting last week, the Section 106 legal agreement is nearing completion, and the revised and updated version will be publicly available on our website, possibly next week. Officers are clear in what needs to be achieved with the Section 106 legal agreement, and this will include the monitoring and managing strategy. Now, part of that mitigation is for a pedestrian refuge, not crossing, but pedestrian refuge, just above the old jail in Morton's Road, outside the King's Head. You will be aware that this council has already indicated it would like to replace the currently temporary crossing with a permanent one in due course, so this may well have some effect on that Section 106. This will come up with my report next Monday at the Planning Committee, and I'll be recommending that we try and deal with Section 106 needs for Buckingham sooner rather than later. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Thank you. Anyone else got anything on Councillor Stutchbury?
On Vale of Arrowsmith neighbourhood plan, listening to the wise words of Councillor Cole, who did a good job of representing the town council, and thank you for the time that you put into it and the time that other people put into challenging that application, and we should record our thanks accordingly. One of the things which has come out of it, and maybe town clerk can tell me whether I'm correct or not, I had discussions today with another place about this, and it was drawn to my attention that the transport assessment for Buckingham has been agreed but never went out to consultation, which means that the transport assessment for the whole area, which the development may have been premised on, perhaps Councillor Cole can correct me if I'm wrong, means that didn't go to public consultation. So the whole premise of the way it was going to work had not actually gone through the full consultation. Having been involved in the original transport plan for Buckingham, and which actually came to this council, I don't recall us ever being consulted on the amendments to the transport plan, which are they have to match with the mitigations for the development, which raises another question about the whole aspect. But I do think that I'm going to put something on the agenda for planning to do with this, because I do think this raises a bigger question of where we go with Buckingham neighbourhood plan, because the legal precedent which was suggested, and perhaps Councillor Cole, who I listened to the meeting, but he was part of the meeting, they said that they premised it on the housing numbers and the Vale plan, and that would probably mean that similar applications, which we won't talk about, may be premised in the same way. And that means that it comes in direct contradiction to a legally transformed Buckingham neighbourhood plan, again, in the future, where a emerging Vale plan, which has been emerging since 2013, it can hardly be called emerging at this late stage in the play. It could be called slowly drifting out of the mosques. So I do think that I have given something to the town club. I would be interested in Mark's view on those comments, because if I'm far wrong, Mark, or the town clerk, correct me, but I think there's a serious issue coming our way.
Thanks, Robin. You didn't have your hand up, Lisa, did you? No.
She was trying not to laugh at me.
Councillor Cole.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yeah, I have another item under the action list. At the interim meeting on the 2nd November, you proposed and I seconded a motion about what's happened to the £63 million grant, Action Town Clerk, but there's nothing on the action list about it.
Okay, Paul?
Yeah, apologies, it should be on the action list. We'll amend that.
Thank you, Councillor Cole, for that, because I raised it on the minutes and was told we're not discussing the action list at the start of the meeting. And I'm glad you raised it again as we're discussing the action list. Could we just agree that the town clerk will action that point?
That's already been agreed by council.
Yeah. So it won't need to appear on the action list. It'll appear as done, won't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. Anybody else got anything on that list? No. Okay. We shall move on to item 15 then, the Diversity and Inclusion Working Group, to receive an update from Councillor Gately.
Thank you, Mayor. The Diversity and Inclusion Group met on the 12th of November with the 6 councillors who were agreed by full council and 6 other members of the public, including 2 or 3 from the university, plus the town clerk. We had a very interesting discussion on various issues. We agreed that a letter would be sent to the schools in Buckingham because we felt it was important to include them in the discussion. And 4 members of the group are agreeing wording for that letter. Other ideas mentioned in the meeting were to review the Town Council's equality and diversity policy. These are ideas. To hold a carnival style event embracing different cultures, including poetry, food, etc. Use the show racism, the red card ideas to develop our own thoughts along those lines, something that might help us here. And similarly, Oxford is an anti-racist city, and we could use some of the ideas that they've already discussed and agreed to perhaps form an anti-racist Buckingham. And the other idea was to consider appointing someone with diversity and inclusion as part of their role as a point of contact. We had, I think it was originally hoped that there would be a full report to full council this evening, but because of the way that this group has developed, that hasn't been possible. Our next meeting is on January the 12th, and Adam Chago from Buckinghamshire Council, who's the Community Engagement Officer, will be joining us to help us in our discussions then. Having said we're not in a position to give a full report to Council tonight, it was agreed that this is urgent in the sense that it needs to be concluded during the period of this Council. It can't be left until after the next elections. So we are aware of the urgency of the need to get something sorted. Any questions?
Councillor Stutchbury?
Did the Buckinghamshire Council officer say he was going to bring anything, well, I mean, basic terms of reference and things that we can use, advice on diversity officer and whether they'd got one in place themselves? You know, because the idea of having an officer who deals with those matters is good practice, I would have thought. And maybe just ask them when they come to bring as much information as possible at that meeting, because they do have access to stuff that the group would need, and quite a lot of what they need to cover will come under Buckinghamshire Council and not under the Town Council when it comes to some of these elements. So I'm pleased he's coming, and I thank you, Margaret, for the report. But is he going to bring any information with you to help you on how to go about having someone with diversity? Because training someone for that is quite a specialist thing, really, isn't it? It's not, you can't just say, well, make somebody a diversity officer. They need to actually understand why they're doing that.
Okay, thank you, Robin. I think Councillor String-Clark.
Thank you. This isn't so much a question, but just to congratulate Councillor Gately and everybody who went to that meeting for actually getting a report to this meeting, because I had hoped that you would have had much longer build up to be able to bring back a report. But I'm so pleased that, you know, something is on the way. And I also wanted to say about the Oxford City Anti-Racist Council, because I've been attending one of their training courses for the last 11 weeks, and they have got a really, a lot of great people on their team. So it would be lovely, if you could actually see what you can get from their findings. Thanks.
Okay. Yeah, I'd also like to thank Councillor Gately for bringing back all that information, which is very good. And just to let you know, when Paddy was mayor, we went to Banbury and they had a cultural diversity evening, which was food, dance, poems, also, and it was a fantastic evening and it worked very well. So hopefully we could look at something like that. Thank you. Paul wanted to speak?
Yeah, just in response to Robin's point, just to say that we've invited Adam Chair along as the Buckinghamshire Council officer. I've had various exchanges with him as well, and taken advice through Adam from a couple of other officers as well, including Yvette Thomas, on what might be appropriate. Obviously, this is the first point of connection, and there are a whole number of issues that it might be helpful to get advice from. So whilst we might not be talking about all the things that you mentioned, Robin, at the next meeting, certainly we'll be taking all those things as we need to through the next few months.
That's the answer I was wanting for. I just, it's not an easy one to say yes or no to, and it has to be done considerably. And thank you. And also thank you, Margaret, for a good report.
And Councillor Gately?
Yeah, thank you. I just wanted to say that the basis of all of these ideas was there's no point reinventing the wheel. And when there are people with knowledge out there, particularly the Buckinghamshire officer, it's really helpful to use their expertise and to learn from the work other bodies have done as well.
Lovely, thank you. All right, we shall move on to item 16, Town Council photograph. To discuss whether to make arrangements for an online formal photograph of the current council. Any views on that, please? Councillor Stutchbury?
I think it's a good, we were going to do this, if you remember, before the sad, we wanted to do this and then we lost Derek and Councillor Isham, I'm sorry to say. And now we're got to the situation, if we're doing an online thing, would it be possible or appropriate? Because at the time we wanted to do this, we so wanted Councillor Isham to be part of it, and then situation and everything went on and we didn't get to agree a time and everything, and then we lost Derek. And we did once, when we did a photograph, members may recall, we managed to put Pauline Stevens into the photograph at that time. So if we are doing a camera shot thing with agreement of the family only, would we agree to include Derek? Because I was so hoping that Derek would have been part of this when we first discussed it, and of course the family lost him and so did we. Would it be worth considering that, because it gives us an opportunity to do it? But I don't know how you're doing it, so that's why I've just raised it.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Newell?
I was going to say maybe it's a bit too soon to do an online photograph, and following the vaccine news today from Oxford, they're talking about a possibility of things returning to normal in the spring. And I think if we were able to do because what we were originally going to do was to do the old council at Mayor Making and the new council, so we could capture everyone still on the council, to include those people that aren't standing again, and then doing a new council photograph of all the new councillors. So to be honest, I think there's a very good chance of us being able to do that, given that Mayor Making is the beginning of June. And I'm very hopeful that we will be able to capture both councils that way, in the way that we normally do, rather than a photograph of us zoom in. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Gately?
Thank you, Mayor. I just feel we've been living through a very exceptional year as a council, as well as a nation and as well as a world. And I quite like the idea of that be reflected in some way by a very different photo this year, perhaps of one of our Zoom meetings. And I think it would be a record of something that people will remember, and they'll see a very different photograph, and then that will be a snapshot of the history.
I can see that. Councillor Collins.
I think we should forget it for the moment. Let's wait until June and see what the life's like then. I agree with Ruth on that one.
Okay, Councillor Mordew.
I think Councillor Gately makes a good point. We could do one now or the next meeting, full council meeting. But you don't have to get anybody to do it. You can take a screenshot, and that would suffice. As long as we know, and if we wish to get dressed up, we dress up. But on the other hand, this more relaxed style is more befitting of how we work these days. And do a formal one nearer to the May, well, next March, April or May.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Rolfe.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. It occurs to me that it's a great idea. I like the format and I agree entirely with Councillor Gately. Nevertheless, with the best will in the world, the quality of the pictures are of variable quality depending on what equipment people are using. No disrespect to Councillor Smith, but half of his face is in deep shadow and half of it's quite highlighted. So I'm quite sure it wouldn't be the most flattering item that the point I'm making is it is a variable quality. And it does occur to me it wouldn't be that technically difficult for us to submit photographs, images, send them into the office at a suitable time, and a mock-up of the Zoom format could then have these photographs inserted in. It isn't a technically difficult thing to do, and in that way we'd all be looking our best.
Did you have your hand up, Lisa? Yeah, Councillor Dudley.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I don't see the harm in doing both, quite frankly. If we did an online Zoom type photograph, it's not going to cost us anything. It's going to cost office time, but certainly not the amount that the photographer normally charges. And then in June, spring, hopefully when life returns back to normal, then we hire a photographer and do it properly. But I don't see the harm in doing both, quite frankly.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Newell.
I just wanted to say that there's an awful lot of records of us all on Zoom. It's on YouTube, Facebook, and everything else that you can name. Yeah, we're increasingly out there, and we could do sort of a shot of one of our meetings for the Town Council newsletter as a record of it, but I don't think it's worth doing a photograph until, as I said before, June next year.
When we've all been sprung out.
Yes, hopefully.
Hopefully. Councillor Stutchby.
I really admire everyone's optimism about June. I'm optimistic about June again, but we don't know what's going to happen. We don't know exactly if there is a vaccine, how it's going to be rolled out, who gets it first, and where it goes, and everything like that isn't going to be straightforward. But I do think we should plan for that positive. But when people said there's a reflection of how we look now, I'm always minded of the fact that I can remember Councillor Isham at one meeting criticising the way we all dressed and the fact that we're not as smart as we used to be, and resenting the day that that we dressed down. He said it once at a meeting and used to often say it. So if we are going to do that for soon, we should at least for that day make an attempt to wear a tie, or the very least thing that we do, so that if we do that shot, we can do it anyway, we can choose whether we use it at a later date. And as Councillor Gately says, it just rather reflect the world we're living in. And in 25 years' time, hopefully COVID will be a bitter memory, but it will be a record of how the council conducted itself during that period. So she makes a very good point in that. But if we are going to do it, can we at least put a tie on and at least try and not wear a jumper and or whatever? Unless we're all going to wear braces, and I'll go along with that in memory of Derek. But I'll willingly find a pair of braces. But I'm saying that we do need to sort of, if we're going to do it, let's at least make sure it's a picture of the council as we would in a proper photograph, wearing a tie and being tidy for that day, and maybe just have an extra Zoom meeting just to do the photograph, not a council meeting. So at least we're all in a good mood when we do it, and we haven't crossed swords in any way, shape or form when we do it. And then we don't have to use it, but we can keep it for future reference. And we can do it in June if everybody's optimistic the vaccine is going to be available and we're all going to be going out having tea parties on the lawn, and my mother can finally come out of lockdown. I think we should do both.
Councillor Harvey. You're muted, John.
Yeah, just to support what Robin's saying there, I think we can do all of it. I mean, doing a screenshot of a Zoom meeting is a job for 10 seconds. And I'll put on a tie if that's going to help make Robin feel better. That's fine with me. Well, I'll put on some suitable neck adornment or whatever we want to call it. And let's do the other photographs in May as well of the old council and new council. I don't know how we can manage to get Derek involved in some way. I'm obviously open to that. Miss him greatly still. But if there's some way of making that happen, I'm all for it too, of course. I mean, I think we want everything, don't we? We don't want to say it has to be one or the other. Let's do a Zoom thing at the next council meeting. Although I suggest that we'd get a better photograph, building on what Councillor Ralph says, if we had a meeting during the day, because daylight would be a lot better on our visages than the kind of the half light I've got here, even though I've got 3 lights on in the room.
Yes. Okay. Any other offers on that? No.
Can I propose we agree that then?
Yeah, okay. Everybody in agreement with having a Zoom photo with ties on, except the females.
Yeah, obviously.
And in daylight?
In daylight.
As suggested.
You have to have a sunny day then, Robin.
Well,
no,
it could be done.
No.
Well, a bright one, yeah. Okay, I think 1, 2, 3,
4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 in favour.
Okay.
14 in favour.
Against?
Against?
1, 2.
Okay, thank you. Well, we shall look into that then.
Was it the tie that did it? Or was it Zoom? Wearing a tie that put them off, was it?
Can have a bow tie.
Yeah, I'm not wearing a tie.
I know you're not, Ruth.
Okay, thank you.
I wouldn't expect you to.
Right, we shall move on to item, excuse me, 17, the Town Council Awards, to discuss whether to form a working group to review whether to amend the council's current scheme of awards. Paul, did you want to come and talk to us about that? Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Yeah, just to say that when we had the last informal discussion about awards and who should have them, there were observations or suggestions made about additional awards we might want to have. So, for example, we now have a climate change strategy. We might want to have an award that's relevant to that. The town's changed in a number of other ways. So this is really whether, rather than just giving you a proposal, the suggestion is, would members want to have a working group to review it, to come up with ideas, to bring any recommendations back to resources or full council? Happy to facilitate that if members would find it helpful.
Okay, thank you. Anybody wish to speak on that? Councillor Harvey? You still need
Just to say yes, of course. Let's do that. You know, we've got the flexibility, we've got the time to do that now. Let's have a small meeting to just have a look at that. And I guess it'd be good to have some newer councillors and some older councillors getting together to have a review. Great.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else wishing to
No,
speak?
no, just
No?
happy. Get on with it.
You're
It seems
happy?
a good
Right,
idea.
get on with it. Okay, thank you. Okay, we shall look at doing that then. Item 18, notification of road closure, Morton Road. Did it receive and discuss the notification? Appendix C. Did you want to speak about that, Paul?
No, Councillor Cole
No.
has his hand up.
Sorry. Oh, Councillor Cole, I didn't see your hand there.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yes, I drew this to the attention of Paul and yourself. This is an order to close Morton Road between Summerhouse Hill and Western Avenue for 3 months. No traffic whatsoever, including buses or emergency vehicles. The diversion they're suggesting is 26.8 miles. You go from Western Avenue, top of Western Avenue, to Toaster, to Old Stratford, and back to Buckingham. I mean, it's absolutely nonsensical. It just cannot possibly work. You've got 82 houses along that stretch of road which would be affected. What are they going to do with their cars, and how are they going to get deliveries, etc.? The alternative route suggests Page Hill Avenue. That's really clever. Why would you send trucks up into an into a residential estate? Obviously, whoever drew this order out has a total lack of local knowledge about what Buckingham's all about. Addington Road, of course, is one way, and it'd be the wrong way, so people wouldn't be able to get in and out of Addington Way any longer. They can't go against the no entry signs unless there's going to be a traffic order about that. I mean, the whole thing's ill thought out. I mean, just absolutely surreal, as I say. We have until December the 2nd to make our comments. I don't know if we can stop it because, of course, with a utilities order, they don't need a road traffic order. But I think this is just totally impractical, and it's just going to stop Buckingham dead in its track for 3 months at the very time we're going to be trying to recover from this COVID pandemic.
Yeah, absolutely. Councillor Stutchbury?
Thank you, Councillor Cole, for everything you said. I think the only way we're going to make any difference with this is to go along the very sensible things that you've said about this traffic order and agree a press release about how we think it's going to affect the town. We can also write to the council and ask them what to do, but I fear you're right that the traffic regulation, they have a legal right to do this, but this is an extensive and prejudicial and prejudiced everybody in every way along it, and it's the length of time of it, as you suggested. I think we should do a press release there, ask them whether they really thought this through, and which part of the country did they make this from, because that route is still a major road according to the map. It's still the link to the Pottersbury and whatever, still a major route. So I think we do a press release, and I think we vote on our discussion of it and do a press release on it. I don't know any other way of getting any purchase on it, to be honest.
Councillor Strain-Clark?
Yeah, just very briefly, you know, when the road closures, often they just give you the whole time that it might possibly be. So it's not necessarily going to be the whole 3 months, is it? We don't know that yet. And of course, when you're talking about major vehicles, lorries and things, of course, you don't want to send them wiggling around villages and things. So that's why they've had to show that great diversion. You know, that's what happens. And I'm afraid this is a sort of necessary utility thing. Yeah, we want to have as least possible effect on the viability of the town and the people living in the Morton Road and so on. But I don't think we're going to be able to get away without having some road closure there and a big diversion.
Councillor Harvey?
I mean, I think they've got to fix the gas main. Clearly, that's a job that requires to be done, and there's no choice about it. But what I'm a bit confused about, and I've read the traffic order a couple of times, really, is whether this means a full road closure. In other words, no cars at all going either direction, or whether what they mean is a road closure but with traffic lights. In other words, the people will be able to go up and down, but it'll be controlled by traffic lights. And I wonder whether we should see clarification on that before we go into a full-blown press release and so on. Because when it was first mentioned, they were talking about having traffic light control, because I guess it does depend upon exactly where the old pipe is and where they've got to remove it from. If it goes down the middle of the road, then probably they've got to dig up the whole middle of the road and therefore close the whole road. But if it goes down one side only, then I imagine they'll be able to do it only on one side, as they've done it so far. Up the bit they've done so far is only on one side, not down the middle. But I do appreciate that, given the narrowness of the road, that obviously lorries and buses and probably ambulances and bigger vans and so on will not be able to get up even down one side of a very narrow road, but cars might be able to. I think we ought to be seeking clarification before we jump in. But if it emphatically means, and we know it means, a full road closure, then obviously we've got to say this is crazy, but we understand.
Okay, thank you. I know we've got Councillor Gately and Councillor Hirons, and I'm not sure who had their hand up first.
Well, I think I'll go. As far as I can tell, you stand no chance of this. Truck drivers don't take any notice of that stuff. They go, it's quite a good road actually from Whittlebury down to Deanshanger. It's not a terribly narrow road, and it's what, that's what people will do, really. I don't think they'll follow this. I think they said in this, it led me to believe they couldn't do traffic lights and they were shutting the road altogether. But what that means if you live there or not, I don't know. Where are all the residents going to park their cars because they can't reach their homes? That's going to cause a lot of trouble. So I don't think it's well thought out, and I think they should have been able to find a better way. So they did, if nothing else, they did it just at night. Why do you have to do it if it causes so much trouble? You don't shut the road like that. You shut it from sort of 10 o'clock at night to 6 in the morning, work then, and then patch it up and do it. But I also have very little confidence in the gas main, because gas people, because just down from me, they've just connected a little pipe about 1.5 sorry, I still talk old money, 1.5 inches diameter with a tap on the end of it. And they've had the traffic lights there now for over a week. And they've actually been working there on it for about 4 hours. And that's the big trouble with them, that the likely thing is they're going to do it, they put traffic lights on it, and then they'll go away, especially over the Christmas and New Year period, because who ever heard of building people working between Christmas and New Year? And all they're going to do is just leave it shut and go away. And that we've really got to try and do something about that.
Okay, thank you, Paul. Councillor Gately, did you want to speak?
Yes, thank you. I was going to make some very similar points to Councillor Harvey, but I think when I read it, I had to read it several times to make sure I wasn't imagining things. For an A road to be shut for such an extensive period just seems outrageous to me. And they've obviously managed the lower end of the gas main replacement using the traffic lights, but I do take the point it does depend where the pipe is that they've got to dig up. They clearly need to do the work, but I think we must make it clear to them they've got to do it in a way that isn't going to disrupt the lives and livelihoods of so many people at this key period.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else wishing to speak on that? Sorry, Councillor Cole.
So Councillor O'Donoghue was first.
Oh, sorry, Lisa, I didn't see your finger up there. Councillor O'Donoghue.
Thank you. Councillor Hirons just mentioned about them not wanting to work from Christmas to New Year's, but the work is meant to be starting from the 5th of January, so it completely misses Christmas anyway. And Councillor Harvey was wondering about traffic lights. I would wonder if it says no to emergency services having access through the closure. If that's a no, then I would probably bet that means no to everybody if emergency services aren't going to be allowed through. I'd imagine that'd be the same for cars, because you think that an ambulance would take precedent over a car.
Yeah,
can allow that through.
Thank you for that. Okay. Sorry, Councillor Cole, are you next, or were you? Yeah.
Councillor O'Donoghue said what I would have said. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And Councillor Stutchbury?
So are we agreed? We're going to ask the questions, I take it, to assure that this isn't a flat road closure period. And if it's a road closure for the entire time of works, not just the area which is being worked on, and they're not going to allow anyone through, we then do a press release, but agree we will comment on it, period, if that's the case. Otherwise, and also we need to ask the Highways Authority, and the comments made about I can't imagine the fire service worrying too much about if they want to get to a fire. They're just going to drive straight down there and get to the fire. Otherwise, that voids everybody's health insurance on the way if they can't get to them. So, and the same with ambulances and police. So I think there's lots of questions to ask, but if it comes out that it's really horrendous and negative, then I think we have to comment on it.
Yeah, absolutely, I agree. Okay, so that's what we will do.
Councillor Smith still has a hand.
Councillor Smith? Where is he? There he is.
Hello, I thought I'd lost video for a minute. One of the things that we ought to ask is whether the work can be done at night, and consider what the impact that might have on residents trying to get some sleep, and whether there will be any traffic control, because looking at normally on these maps they show you where there's going to be a bit of traffic control, traffic lights or something like that, or guys turning around those circular doodah stop go things. There's no sign of that on the map, and no mention of it at all that I could find anywhere in the stuff. The only other comment I'd make is that they seem to have simply taken the best route they could to keep traffic to A roads. That I think is why it is so long. I wouldn't suggest that it goes running through little villages and housing estates and all the rest of it, but I guess that's why they do it.
Yeah.
Yeah. The other point, the point that Paul was making, sorry, Councillor Hirons was making about traffic lights outside his place and for a week and only a few hours work. One of the big problems, of course, particularly with gas engineers, is if there's a leak or a problem somewhere off, the nearest gang is sent out to them, regardless of what they're actually engaged on. We need to sort of clarify that situation a wee bit as well, as to whether this work will be continuous or whether it will be subject to interruptions, and if it is interrupted, whether or not normal traffic movements can be resumed during that period. There are loads and loads of questions that need answering.
Okay, thank you. Right, so we're all agreed we need to write to them and clarify lots of points, see what they come back with. Okay. Is Paul writing it all down? Yes.
Madam Mayor, if I could just clarify, any comments have to be in by December the 2nd.
Okay.
That needs to be
You got
done.
that, Paul?
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you.
Some of the inquiries could be made by telephone, couldn't they?
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, we shall move on to item 19, COVID-19.
Thank you, Mayor. So just to update members, most of the things that you know, but for the record, so at the moment the Tourist Information Centre is shut and Shop Mobility is shut, and the Lays Hill Centre is shut for everything except contact sessions between parents and children. That will remain the case until something changes, which apparently will be on the 2nd of December. You probably see today it looks like all shops will be open. So at the moment the market is restricted to only people selling what are termed essential goods. So presumably that restriction will be lifted from the 2nd of December. So not for this Saturday, but for the possibly the Tuesday the 2nd, or certainly the Saturday after that. Hopefully Lace Hill will become a bit more open after that. But the main question for us isn't just what happens after restrictions, it's what tier will Buckinghamshire be in, what tier will Buckingham be in. So obviously we'll be once again making decisions on a quick basis and risk assessing things as they go along. The team are working from home wherever possible. So there's usually about one person in the office during the week, but as far as possible, people work at home, and the Green Spaces team continue to work outside as always. And they're not sharing vehicles, so they're carrying on having the additional van, so they're not having to share cab space, because that is one area that's been proved to pass the virus on.
Okay, thank you for that. Okay, we shall move on to item 20, the precept preparation update.
Thank you, Mayor. So just to highlight, I haven't given you the draft precept to discuss because that's going around each committee through the 2 stages as per normal. Will come to the precept meeting. I just thought I'd highlight to full council the principles I'm using in preparing the precept. So I put in a salary increase of 2%, which is what Buckinghamshire Council have put in. I put in RPI of costs of 1.5%, and I put in quite a chunky increase of things moving into earmark reserve. So the general reserve will go down and the earmark reserves will go up, which has the effects of both enabling us to get more done and bringing the general reserve closer to the recommended amount. So I'm not asking for specific comments unless I'm asking for view on the overall principle. So I'm getting that principle that I'm taking wrong, and now is the time to tell me, and I'll do something different for the next round of committees.
Okay, thank you, Paul. Anyone wishing to speak on that? Councillor Harvey?
Yeah. Agreement with the principles completely, Town Clerk. My only question is 3.1. It says we reported under of 617,568. Is that figure correct? On page 1.
Oh gosh.
No. It seemed like a lot of money to me.
That would have been quite remarkable, wouldn't it?
Yeah, it would have been.
It should be 100,017, which is still a substantial number.
It is. Okay.
Thank you, Councillor Harvey.
Thank you. Councillor Stutchbury.
Just a question through the town clerk. It's been rumoured that they're going to do a public spending pay freeze on public service workers. I would propose that we agree that element now, so that we agreed it before they change it, because I wouldn't want our staff to not get their pay rise. And as we, the guidance is now, or whether we can agree that. If they bring that in, will that affect us? Will it mean we can't give our employees a pay rise? Because I would see that as completely wrong. We've agreed the principles, meet them pay rises, and we should do it and honour it.
Town Clerk.
Just go back to Paul.
Yeah, so while obviously I'm personally grateful for Councillor Stutchbury's suggestion, our staff contracts all specify that we're subject to the Green Book and the National NJC pay scales, so which means that there's a whole union negotiation every year, and we conform with whatever that says. I would suggest that it's in the council's interest to carry on doing that, because if we withdraw from it, we enter into a whole set of contractual negotiations. But also then the town council would every year enter into a negotiation with staff for what pay rises should or shouldn't be, which with 25 staff and 17 councillors could be, it will take a huge amount of time and effort and energy. Whereas actually, for better or worse, I think it's better for us all that we stick with the national arrangement.
Well, just can I have it recorded that I would think if our staff didn't get the pay rise they're entitled to, I would see that as a wrongdoing against the stuff they've done and the extra things they've done during COVID, and how they've all worked to try and do remarkable things for the town and in the office and in the ground maintenance staff. And I think I would like to record that I hope that isn't the case, and I would see it as a deprivation against our staff, and they should have what they're entitled to.
Councillor Cole.
Point Point of order, Madam Mayor. We should not be discussing staff remuneration on a public forum. We are live on YouTube.
Yes, here.
Yeah, absolutely. So that was just the written report for the precept update. So if we have any, we won't be discussing any staff things. Does anybody else want to speak on the original matter? No. No, okay. We shall move on. Item 21, the reports from representatives on outside bodies. We haven't any reports to listed below to note, so that is that one. Mayoral engagements, just to receive that list of events.
And Madam Mayor,
Mm-hmm.
Were you actually at the cenotaph? I didn't see you on the telly.
No, it should have said War Memorial.
I
So we
thought so.
can
Yeah, I'd question
alter
that as
that,
well.
please. Yes, thanks, Ruth. So if we can change that to War Memorial, Nina, please. Anything else on there? 23, Chair's announcements. I think everything's been said that I was thinking of saying, so nothing else there. The date of the next meetings, we have interim council on the 21st of December and a full council, which is the precept, on the 11th of January. Excuse me. We've also got next full council after that would be the 25th of January 2021. And hopefully we'll see an improvement in things before then. So that is the end of our session for now, and we need to go into the confidential